I will call the meeting to order for the Jamaica Selectboard for Monday, January 9th. I actually had a couple things to add to the agenda. One is that we go into executive session to discuss a health officer concern in the meeting. And then Paul would like to give an update from the emergency management director regarding the state. I'm going to move that in. Paul's got some other things going on, so I'm going to put that kind of up in right after the sheriff, if the sheriff comes in. But we'll get you in earlier than the app. And then we'll have a chance for public concerns at the end. And anybody else have anything?
I'm going to raise something in public concerns.
Okay. That's fine.
Change your hat.
So with that, the first item is to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was December 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a question still, or again, in number 2, in the third line down, it should read that people who have tried to pay fire and rescue for the next meeting. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it was supposed to mean, but I think maybe you put in what it was the first time that I said.
Where is it under?
It's in
Under
the
number
first
2,
item. Revisions from the previous meeting.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it was supposed to mean, what it was supposed to say, but it
It
doesn't
should
seem to
read
be.
that people who have tried to pay fire and rescue would be at the next meeting to discuss how it was worked for them.
What do you mean, pay fire and rescue?
Instead of being volunteer, they paid them.
Yeah.
When you try to pay,
Because I said it wrong the first time, so this was me trying to say it right the second time.
wait, I still don't understand.
That organizations who have tried to pay fire and rescue,
What do
pay
you
their
mean?
staff.
Pay their.
Go pay versus volunteer. So convert their fire department to a paid,
Or if we're talking about the discussion,
a salaried,
there were some that were paid per call,
paid per call.
Okay.
among other
Yeah,
things.
maybe it would make
So
sense.
you know what,
for
do
it to
pay
be
per call.
Pay per call.
Pay per call for 4 fire and rescue.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't mean to use it.
Pay per call for fire rescue. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Paid
that's
per,
it.
P-E-R, yeah, call.
Thanks.
That makes more, that makes sense.
Just the
So-
economics. How do you want to structure it?
All right, anything else? Or any other amendments or changes? All in favor of approving or make a motion, somebody make a motion to
I'll make a
approve
motion
the
to
minutes as amended.
approve the minutes from December 12th as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. The second item is to approve the minutes from our 2 budget planning meetings of December 4th and 11th.
So moved.
Second from Kate. Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All approved. The next one, there are a couple people.
Sheriff did come in. He's
Sheriff.
there, yes.
Good evening, Mark. You are welcome to the meeting and you're up.
Good evening. I actually apologize for being a couple minutes late, though I thought I didn't miss my spot. I was looking at my calendar trying to find the Zoom link, and now I'm wondering if I said I was coming in person. So
No, it's
if
all
I made
good.
a commitment, I apologize. It just wasn't in the cards to come today.
No, that's totally understandable and acceptable, and having you here on Zoom is perfect, and I think it's kind of our annual kind of get together in whatever format, just to hear how things are going. There's probably some questions, and we'll let you kind of lead off.
Great. So we are in our now, and I'm getting a phone call. I'm sorry if my phone starts buzzing. We are in our now second year, or I should say year and a half, of the joint relationship with the town of Londonderry. So far, I would say it is going well. Certainly things that we are learning, the difference in population between Londonderry versus Jamaica obviously drives a different correlation and call volumes of how we manage the schedule and to ensure that the town of Jamaica receives its fair share. There's still lessons to learn. That said, one of the things that you're aware, there was some hours that were rolled into the current contract year, and one of the things that we said we would do is provide coverage on Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons to deal with the increase in traffic that Jamaica experiences. So we've begun doing that. What we have is we run the split. It's the 20 hours Jamaica, 20 hours Londonderry during the week. And then in addition to that, we're scheduling between 1 and 2 other deputies to provide that coverage on Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons. So we started that in December. We're currently running it. I didn't do my math beforehand. We did about 120 hours last month, which normally we would do 80 hours, so an extra 40 hours over what we normally do. And again, that's to chew up some of that leftover funds from last year now that we've hit the ski season travel. For next year, we're going to continue to propose a similar arrangement. Between the two towns, we're understanding the management issue of the time with the differences in call volume. You will also, the select board or town clerk or whoever you want to receive the request, but right now I'm planning on the select board will be receiving an invitation from me along with all the other select boards in Windham County as an invitation to a meeting about regionalized policing that will be occurring in February. So you'll be receiving that this week. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, other than we are setting it for, I believe, the first week of February. It will be held in Newton, and we'll get that information to you for that meeting. Without going too much into details of what that meeting is, what I'm looking to do is say what we're currently doing might not be the best solution. I think there's better ways that as a region we can provide better policing to all of Windham County without breaking the bank. The work that we're doing with Jamaica and Londonderry certainly lends credence to that. So that's all I got for now.
All right, thank you. I will kind of turn it to the board, I guess, to see if there's any specific questions.
Does Andy want to go first? Or myself?
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So in our budgeting meeting, hello, Sherif.
Hello.
Thank you for joining. So one thing we did notice was a pretty significant reduction in, fines, penalties that go to our sort of, our profit and loss statement, let's say. In terms of relationship, it does seem to have coincided with this new partnership with Londonderry. I don't know if the two are related. So I know Andy did give us some color around this, but we did say that we would just kind of raise that with you, mainly because it was such a stark change. If it were, anywhere between even 10 and 50% change, probably would just think it's, whatever in the normal course. But this was even well more than 50% fall off. So, I mean, just open up to kind of a discussion of that.
Sure. So, couple things. One is that with the introduction of the speed feedback signs in Jamaica Village, we have seen, which is actually a good thing, we have seen a reduction in speeds that we would normally see. Not to say that we're not still identifying vehicles that are going over the speed limit, but certainly that tool has been a benefit. I assume that you are also seeing that or hearing that from your constituents. But any feedback you have with regards to that, certainly open to. We are also, so that's the good news for Jamaica. Here's a growth area for my department. We are working on balancing some of the lessons learned over the last 2 years. We have had a lot of community feedback and input about how policing occurs, how we interact, right down to the core foundational values and principles of what law enforcement in Vermont does. With that, we're seeing people who are experiencing varying varying income levels. Our deputies are certainly being receptive to that, and so issuing fines, we've also seen a reduction in that, which is now, from my position, something that we need to approach in a measured and balanced way, so that we are continuing the enforcement piece. I'm sure this board has heard me speak about the three-leg stool of traffic safety. One leg is education, one leg is engineering, and one leg is enforcement. Without any one leg, the stool falls over. There are areas that we need to do some work to improve on the enforcement side. And what we're identifying is it comes back to deputies not wanting to create engagement in areas that we traditionally did based on feedback we received from the public. But now we're receiving different feedback from the public, which is cars are driving really fast, they're driving out of control, they're driving very aggressively. We're seeing increases in crashes. So all the metrics that we followed 4 years ago and up until about 2020, we're now identifying trends that we need to address. So that has been a topic of discussion with my supervisors starting last month, because this is, unfortunately, it's not unique to Jamaica. It is several towns that we're talking about.
Okay, so, did Londonderry experience, I'm just out of curiosity, did Londonderry experience the same drop-off? Do you know offhand? You might not.
I don't know offhand. It's hard to go town by town, and part of the reason for that is because Londonderry before had no relationship with us, and so they were just an unpoliced area that, I mean, we're seeing some absolutely crazy things. Cars going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour over the speed limit in 30-mile-an-hour zone. So hard to make that an apples-to-apples comparison, but what I'm seeing with towns that have a history with my department, as long as Jamaica is similar. So we're going to take ownership of our actions, and we're working to increase traffic enforcement and stops.
I think, in our internal conversations, and I don't want to speak for others on the board, but definitely the signs have made a difference. Obviously, they're not perfect, and they're inanimate, and there's no picture taking and a ticket issued, unlike when you run a red light in New York City. And so there's still an observation of violations, and there is, as you said, there have been, unfortunately, accidents as a result of this type of driving. So I think we would all agree that we encourage this kind of maybe correction, not a correction, but this, what you're describing as a refocusing on that element of policing, which is a very new, understood to be a nuanced and challenging aspect of governance. So we appreciate that. Anybody else? Karen?
I have a question. Is it better to have police presence here for speeders on Friday night and Saturday afternoon when there's so much traffic and cars are in lines and they can't really go that fast? But Saturday morning, Sunday morning, when they're all flying up here to go to the mountain to go skiing, they're going pretty fast through here then. Whereas, when you've got 50 cars in a line, nobody's going very fast. It's just a thought.
I'd be happy to respond to that.
Certainly.
If I may.
Please.
Yes.
I'm used to legislative testimony now, so I'm not sure what I'm allowed to talk and not allowed to talk. If we're only targeting speed, then there's certainly merit to what you say. In terms of it's more difficult for us to stop one vehicle in a line of cars where they're all going the same speed, because obviously they're going under the speed limit. We're also identifying distracted driving, impaired driving, cars overtaking other cars in lines of traffic, and so in small areas we might not see necessarily certain behaviors, but when we look at about 30 miles of Route 30, we're identifying absurdity throughout the valley. So to that end, certainly we are open to any input from the board. We previously had input that Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons was a desire, and that's pretty common amongst most of the West River Valley. If we can certainly adjust resources to come in Saturday or Sunday morning. My experience has been that we see both sides of traffic. It depends, mostly it depends on timing, it also depends on the winter weather forecast in some metropolitan areas. So to that end, our deputies also, when they see that we're dealing with long lines of cars, long lines of cars, and they know their effectiveness might be better served elsewhere, they will move on and then return as traffic either becomes more sparse or we identify different types of complaints that are coming in. In short, it's more complex than just going after the speeding vehicles, but at the same time, we're also trying to be mindful of your resource.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Hi, Mark, Andy.
And
I know that in our contract, my take on it is that we hire the sheriff's department and they do their job the way they see fit. Now, in this climate, we got another thing on the agenda tonight that I really don't want to sister into this one. But, you know, I have some friends and acquaintances who were in law enforcement, had many years in, and they went out because maybe they couldn't pull people over for speeding as much as they should. They thought that they couldn't do their job like they had in the past. So I understand that I know that we've had this conversation, and I don't think it was private, that you tell your deputies or you allow them to use their discretion in whether they give someone a warning, a ticket, arrest them, or tell them to knock it off or whatever. And, you know, I can't speak for the state police, but it seems that they don't pull a lot of people, and watch me get it tomorrow. But, so I understand that it's a kind of an elephant in the, you know, there's kind of a, I don't want to be on the board and to tell you guys you need to write more tickets so we can offset the expenses like what kind of used to happen when I was first aware of working with the sheriff's department on previous select boards when things were different. You couldn't just pull people over and write big tickets. You understand what I mean? And I think I can speak for the board, and we're not depending on revenue to offset your services. It's just there was some concern about our treasurer too, about why no tickets have been being written, and I think it is up to the sheriffs. You know, we can't tell them how to do their job. We can ask them what we just asked them. So I, as a select board member, understand the quandary or challenge you have there, and just appreciate your guys' presence. And I understand that those signs, if you're sitting in town, that people are going to slow down for those signs and then take off after they get by them. We can move. That's what people do. So I read in the paper where they run them up to see how high they can get them if they don't think the sheriff's are around. So, you know, we can move those around, but I understand that may be a detriment to revenues that would come from speeding tickets in town. Even though we see them speed, I know it's all over the place, but.
So, a few things, Andy, and everyone. So, number one, anytime I approach a town, I always say, my perspective is that we're not here to be a revenue generator for you. Vermont law does allow for revenue to be generated by some of the work that we do, but what we are targeting, and one of the things I feel firmly about, what we're targeting is true public safety, traffic safety issues, things that are defensible. And I assume, Andy, just looking at your agenda, I assume part of what you're referring to not being sistered in was around fair and impartial policing. I saw that you had an inclusion statement on the agenda, which often that goes hand in hand with our discussions around fair and impartial policing. I'm very proud of my department's history with fair and impartial policing. In fact, we, across numerous studies since 2016, our data has always represented that we are not using bias techniques, that our deputies are generally doing the things that we are asking them to do and targeting the behaviors that we are asking them to asking them to help mitigate. I'm also, I bring up the speed feedback signs because those are an example of an engineering intervention as well as an education intervention. So this is actually reinforcing what I talked about with my stool, which makes me a little happy because it sounds like I know what I'm talking about for a minute. That said, I know that enforcement is a piece, and I know that there's areas where the guardrails we set up we're not going near. And I'm using the guardrail metaphor to say that my deputies have discretion, and they have discretion whether to write a ticket or stop or issue a warning. The concern I have is that we're not stopping cars based on the number of complaints that we're seeing. This is not unique to just my department. We did a statewide study where we looked at all the departments, and we saw, I think it was roughly a 60 to 70%, don't quote me on that, I can give you the exact number if you care, but roughly a 60 to 70% decrease in motor vehicle stops by law enforcement statewide. So this is not a unique issue. Our profession has undergone a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, a lot of public input, and we're kind of building the cars we drive it. And right now I feel that we're at a point where we need to do more in terms of interventions with cars. We need to be stopping more cars. I'm not here to say that we're setting up checkpoints and stopping every car. I don't want there to be a fear of a massive crackdown per se. What I'm saying is that where I think we should be to be adequately effective towards traffic safety, towards public safety, is higher than what we're currently doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good. Yeah, state your name and then,
Sure. Derek Hall, and I'm so glad you're here. And I just wanted to reiterate what was said about the different timing of exploring sheriff presence. That, the Friday nights when there's a long line versus Saturday mornings. Being somebody who lives right in town on the main street, I can tell you that people fly through here when there's not a line of traffic, to the point where it's not as much about distracted driving, but pedestrian safety as well. I mean, Jamaica, for those of us who live right in town, it's a pedestrian town, and there's a lot of walkers and dogs and children and, families with strollers and senior citizens. So my concern is the speed that people come right through downtown. They go past the speed sign and then gun it. And I've literally gone out in the middle of the road to slow people down because I'm that way. But it's a safety hazard, so, aside from the revenue. But and so just the presence of a sheriff's car significantly slows people down. I've certainly seen that. Or I'll see people flying down, Jamaica Mountain, and then they'll slow down when they see the sheriff car, not the sign. So I would reiterate that when there's long lines of traffic, distracted driving and some of those concerns, and I've been on calls where we have the 3-car pileups, but they're usually minor injuries. Whereas if a child or somebody were in the road when somebody came right through town, that would be a major catastrophe. And I think that's more of a concern than bumper situations.
Can you share your role in the fire department with the sheriff?
I'm a member, rescue and fire and show up to calls. And thank you for your presence. I've certainly seen you deputies and, on scene. I like that we work hand in hand. I think right down in town as a civilian presence, that's my concern here tonight. And really glad to hear that you're saying that we need to sort of up the ante a little bit. And I would say more than a little bit, significantly, because I haven't done an official study, but I work from home and I'm here, you know, in town. And today was the first time I've seen a sheriff since before Christmas. And when I saw them there, they were there 2 days before Christmas. I hadn't seen anybody. Somebody stopped by in October at Halloween just to say hi. And it was probably August before the last time I had seen a car out front, you know, just parked there. So I'm curious about the contract we're paying and the time discrepancy of how much presence is in town, you know, on that return.
So I think I'll respond to a couple things there. Number one, I hope I did not sound dismissive of Saturday or Sunday morning patrols. It's just the first that I've heard it. So I've already written a note down for my patrol staff, and certainly happy to talk to the board about how we allocate the resource. Number two, with regards to long lines, totally agree, and likely where we see those is in the village, where we have the slowdown. And then what we see on the other sides of the village will be the increase where then we have other people report issues and concerns. So this is the hard part about our job is I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm going to say it, we can't be everywhere. And there's never a cop when you need one. So I get it. I think we have some opportunities to improve some of the conditions you're seeing. So I want to take what you're sharing with me back to my patrol supervisors and see if we can get some meaningful change. The second thing is I just want to clarify that aside from Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I've pretty much had someone in town every day. So whether they're being seen or not being seen, I can tell you the dates and times. There's also times where we're involved in an activity that requires us to not be physically present. This is providing cases to the state's attorney's office. We have to generate those documents and provide those. So sometimes people are doing paperwork to transact those. That's all I can offer.
Mark, I would like to see those logs then, if you could send those to the town.
And where they are.
Because I'm assuming that the deputies have to report, I was here and here's where I was at this time.
We get them.
I mean,
We get
if
them.
it's, okay.
Because they're not seen enough.
I'm just curious,
So have access to our online
Right.
reporting system.
I'll take a look at that then. Yeah.
is there maybe a definitional issue? Like when we think of seeing the sheriff, someone from the sheriff's department in town, we think of someone parked for a period of time in a manner that's visible to traffic and to pedestrians. If it also means someone driving through, that would not necessarily register for us. So if that is considered time in town, that might be helpful to us to understand. And then maybe there's a way we can, being respectful of Andy's concern that we don't want to tell you how to do your job, but then, that's one end of the spectrum to the other end, which is telling you how to do your job. Is there a middle ground where we kind of understand, what do you mean when you say someone's in town versus kind of what we would think that means? And I genuinely mean kind of just understanding we're all talking about the same thing.
So generally, if we're just driving through town, I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I drive up Route 30 to go to, the police academy, and for some reason I'm going through the back way of Route 30. I wouldn't capture that as time. It's where we're focusing and scheduling deputies to specifically address the issues that Jamaica has identified for us. Generally speaking, and I don't have the specifics of that 2-week period of the exact activity that my staff did, but generally speaking, we are scheduling them Monday through Friday with that relationship with Londonderry. And then in addition to that, we're adding on those additional hours that the board asked us to do, and we're carrying over from a prior contract year. Could that mean that they're on the south end because they're on the south end? Could that mean they're in Rawsonville? Sure. We try to rotate the location that the person is so that there's visibility, and that we can try to broadly address any of the issues that are being reported to us.
Just as, in defense of the sheriff's department, once again, things change as the years go on. I operate out of Depot Street. I've got a small business. And when I'm working, I'm not in town that much. But when I do come in town, not every time, because I live here, I've seen sheriffs, 1 out of 3 times, whether they're parked at the bank, whether they're underway, whether they're up into the trees up in Rossendale or on the border up there. I see them. I mean, if we want our own police department, I don't even want to go there. If we want to have a cop sitting, or law enforcement sitting in the village, we may need to think about our own police department, or a constable or something. But I do see a sheriff's presence. I was out on Parsons Lane on a job at the end of the road. A sheriff came out to the end of that road and I stopped him. I said, he said he was just coming from Jamaica and just starting the South Londonderry shift, but he was way out in the middle of nowhere by magic on what was turning into a town trail. And I just had a chat with him, and I talked to him about how some of our board was, and our treasurer was wondering why no one gets that many tickets. And he said that he explained his philosophy on it, that he'd like to give people warnings at first, unless they're excessive or drinking. And I had a 10-minute chat with him on my job. So that was unexpected to see him way out there. So, maybe if they're just not parked in front of the store, they're still around.
There's a lot of other patrolling going on up and down.
We get a statement that tells what road they're on, what time, for how long. I mean, if we need, maybe we should discuss more time. But just wanted to sort of stick up for the sheriff's department a little bit.
I don't think anybody's criticizing the
No,
sheriff's department.
I don't mean to come across that you were, but either that, it's lucky me, I get to see the state police and the sheriff's department the only time I'm on the road. But I do see,
They're looking
I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. In my truck, it doesn't matter. I see law enforcement. Not like I used to, or we used to.
No, just you, no.
No, I mean in years past, not like we used to. We used to see a heavy presence of state police. We don't see that.
All right. Well, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if there are any further specific locations, so 2 things. One is that we have, I didn't catch his name, but the gentleman in the audience, he said he hadn't conducted a formal study. We have 3 or 4 black boxes. I think we call them a rhino. They're fairly new to me, so I might be making up the name. But anyway, that can do formal studies and can help us identify specific times. So we do use those and deploy them throughout the county. There's no cost to the town for us to do that. So I'm going to put Jamaica on my list. I assume, by the sounds of it, this is Route 30 in Jamaica Village.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It might be interesting to.
That allows us to identify, because even if they're, I'm making this up because I personally just don't know. Let's say that there's 10 cars Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning, and there's 5 cars Saturday morning, but it's the same 5 cars. That's a different issue to address than transient traffic that's coming through during those mornings that we're also trying to address. So they do help us identify the best way to use the resource and or suggest enforcement strategy. So we'll get those out there. And then the second issue I want to mention is that if the board becomes aware, certainly encourage people to call our office and report it. We do capture motor vehicle complaints so we can specify where they're occurring. We use that as part of our strategy. I say that we work Monday through Friday. That's partly because of the arrangement we have with Londonderry, but if we need to shift that, there's nothing that locks us into Monday through Friday. There's adaptability to that, and with the overage from the last budget year, we're actually able to take advantage of providing more coverage at these unique times that might be one-offs, they might be consistent behavior that requires a different activity. So please encourage members of the public to contact my office and report these. It's not uncommon for me to say, or hear people say, well, I didn't want to bother you guys with it. It's not a bother. Please let us know. I also have a puppy who wants to come visit, so, sorry. But, yeah, information's good for us. We'd like to take the information and capture it so that we can make pretty reports and let you know what's happening.
Mark, have you guys moved to Brattleboro? Has that move happened yet? From Newfane?
But we have moved to Brattleboro. We've been in Brattleboro. We started moving roughly in April.
Okay.
And we finished moving. Our dispatch was the last to move. That occurred roughly, I want to say September, October.
Okay.
But in that time, one of the things that I do want to reiterate, despite the move, our deputies' patrol model hasn't changed. They have take-home cars, they have in-car computers. Some of the cars have in-car printers. We have cellular capacity within the vehicle. So with that, it allows them to do a lot of the work remotely. We do take advantage of access to like the town's fire department to be able to do paperwork, so I know that that's happened in the past. But there's some things that they do have to physically do in person in Brattleboro. But one of the things that we don't do, aside from the time that we're actually working on, say, a Jamaica case, we're not charging you that travel time. So, generally speaking, the time we're spending on the town's contract is spent in the town with those nuances of, I'm literally writing a report for this DUI case that happened last night, and I'm in Brattleboro. So, that does happen, but again, you're not charged for the travel time to get from Jamaica to Brattleboro to report.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay. The next, Paul, I'll slot you in right now if that sounds good to you, so since you've got other engagements. So Paul is gonna just give an update on some emergency management type stuff.
Real quickly, probably the first thing is to do some vocabulary. This is regarding the Vermont Health Department's, what they call, POD stands for point of distribution. Should there be an emergency of some sort anywhere in the state that requires mass inoculations, mass treatment, mass medication of some sort, they have points of distribution where they will then distribute that medication to the civilian population. They have also closed pods. A closed pod, point of distribution, is an agency or a corporation, or in our case, a municipality, and we set up a closed pod. And what that means is, while they're setting up points of distribution around the state, we have one for our municipal employees. It's closed. Including the fire department. So the closed pod has to be managed a little different. We need to have someone who can accept the medications, and we do. We have a nurse who's going to help us with that. But that means that you, as members of the board, employees, and the fire department, and their families are allowed to use the closed pod. Global thinking is that emergency responders and the staff and faculty of the town are probably going to be busy in an emergency of some sort. So rather than take you away from your jobs to go someplace to get medications, they'll bring them to us. What we've done is, this year we've added the Selectboard. Before it was just the employees. But I talked to the people at the health department, and they said that we could include the Selectboards as the Selectboard and their dependents. And I had the fire department done anyway because they're part of the first responders. So we're up to, I don't know, 50 or 60. I don't remember the exact number. But the idea is, should something go bad, we would have a closed pod, probably here, and they would bring us the medications, and we would dispense them to a closed population. So what's happening now is this, my understanding, and it still says in the paperwork, they're supposed to be redone every 5 years. This is the 4th year. Maybe something's changed, I don't know. But at any rate, they're asking for us to update in numbers. And the agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding. It's not a contract, but it explains, basically, we accept the medications and we disperse them according to the instructions and the nurse that comes with them and that sort of thing. We've had this thing going for several years. What's changed on this one is I'm no longer the select board chair, so I'm putting me down as emergency management director, and I'm dating it tonight. And I'll fix the numbers and stuff to make sure we've got everything, and I will send it off to Pam tomorrow.
Sarah.
But, what's that?
Sarah.
I can send it to Sarah. I was thinking Pam is the health. I'll just send it to you. I'll just send it to everybody. But the idea though is, it's simply, we're updating the forms, we're updating the body count to add the select board in advance. And agreeing to do what we've been agreeing to do now for 4 years. Had you heard of this closed pod thing before?
No.
This is new.
Never.
We talked about it 4 years ago.
At some
Yeah.
point when you came in.
Yeah,
A
you
little while ago with the.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that we all, my first law of predictability, the more prepared you are for something, the less likely it is you'll have to do it. So we get all this preparation and then we never use it.
Take an umbrella, so it won't rain.
Precisely, exactly. But anyway, if you have any questions, that's kind of what we're doing. With your permission, now, the select board needs to approve me doing this for the town. I did it before, but then I was a select board. So I'm doing it as the emergency management director. There's no real critical vetting for this particular individual. But you all need to accept me as the signature and allow me to sign for the town to agree to the memorandum of understanding.
Do we have a motion?
Through our clerk, or she have paperwork, or will she be the vehicle to give us the form?
Yeah, well, what'll happen is if something goes really bad, they will come through me or the town, depending who they can reach.
As far as
Shall I make
signing,
a
I'll make a
motion?
motion to approve Paul to, appoint Paul to sign the memorandum of agreement of understanding rather with, who's it with?
Marvin Hill, right?
Permanent
Department
Power.
of Health.
Um,
Yeah, Pam Corbett was the name I used before, but I'll get this to you.
Any,
Kate seconded.
any second, yes, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Paul.
Nope. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Paul.
And if we need to sign something or me
Nope.
or whatever.
He
we do,
signs.
What
You
I've
sign.
done in the past, and I will do again, is electronically sign it to her.
Perfect.
To Pam.
Oh,
So all set.
That's kind of what I was saying.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's nothing you need to sign.
Okay.
It's fine.
Easy enough. All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
sir. I apologize for not sticking around for the rest of the festivities.
Well, have a good night. Thanks.
We always enjoy your company.
I know, I enjoyed myself.
We hope.
Can I add a coincidental announcement that I hadn't thought of until you started talking?
Sure, yeah.
Just point of information, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, the department's having a regional training, so with all the regional towns, and it happens to be on this new command structure, and a gentleman from the state is coming down to talk about if there was a mass casualty or, significant event, what the incident command and accountability structure is, and I don't know, like 6 or 8 different towns are coming in, and we're hosting it here at our department, so
Oh,
just kind of
nice.
coincidence, it works out.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that.
Great, yeah.
Which, on that very thought, remember, as select board members, ICS should be in your future. Actually, it should be in your
You'll be
past.
a part of it.
But if it's not in your past, it should be in your future.
Incident command system.
Exactly, and you can get the first level one, maybe the second one as well. I know the earlier ones, 100 of those things can be done online, and they don't take long at all. Yeah. But if you get them to go in person, they can be very informative and fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Good. So basically, see ya.
Hi.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Mike. The next item is a discussion of Jamaica's statement of inclusion. And this was something that was, something we had worked on and developed a couple of years ago, and it's come forward again with regards to, I guess, a broader state initiative or another group, not necessarily through the state, but anyways, and Karen, you wanna kind of lead into where we're going,
Sure.
or what we're being asked for, I guess?
Well, this is the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion, and it's for municipalities and other organizations to adopt and declare. There's 86 towns and cities that have adopted this so far, or 57.2% of the population. And it's really just a statement that will sort of be statewide, just declaring inclusion.
Can I spend a little time? That's okay?
Sure,
I'm gonna
yes.
kind of, well, go ahead.
No, so basically, we had made a declaration, and
Right.
we're not, the state is trying to standardize that across.
It's a little bit different, right? So
Yeah, I'm asking.
Right, so I wanted to do a little digging, just go onto the website myself, see, who do we make this declaration, who's making the declaration, what have you. So it's interesting, it's kind of, I would say, kind of parallel with our statement. So we made our statement in reaction to some very awful behavior that we had seen. And our statement, while I think definitely a statement of inclusion, in that umbrella, was definitely in response to that and is kind of tailored to that. But I would say, based on what I saw on the website, our statement definitely puts us in the group of towns that have adopted statements of inclusion. So really, in order for us to be on that map, there's like an interactive map where you can see all the towns, and it's quite a few. It's 85% of the towns of our state, which encompasses almost 60% of the population, have made this request to be viewed by this organization and included on this map as a town that has made a statement of inclusion. So there's not on the website, it gives you a recommended way as the town to request to be included on this list of towns. And we could repeat our statement. We could use their suggested format, but it's not, we don't need to be, we're not like changing the statement that's on our website. At least that's what I, understood from looking at it and kind of just perusing. Instead, we would be writing a letter to this organization saying, here's the statement we made. We would like to be included as a town on your map. And that is this is definitely viewed as an asset for the state of Vermont, particularly for not just tourism. I don't want to make it sound pecuniary like that, but Vermont as a state, as a brand, as a potentially a tourist location, but also just as a
place to live.
For us to live. All of us who live here. This is just to be included as our village and to just deepen the number of towns that have raised their hands to say, we've made a statement and we, add us to your list, is what they're asking. And I think is what Karen is saying we should certainly consider, if not do. So, I just wanted to make that clear that we're not changing the statement that's on the website, nothing like that. It's really a request to be included in this publicly available map and just to be included as among the list of towns formally who've made a statement of inclusion.
Are you? Okay. It's more than that. I read the 16 pages of background. Did you read all that?
I perused, and I
Okay.
focused more on what they were asking
I get it,
for.
but I'm not gonna, I believe that our statement reflects our experience, and it was put together by residents of the town of Jamaica.
Mhm.
I think we were all here, maybe one of us wasn't. And I don't believe that we should change one word of our statement, that we should keep that, because that's Jamaica's experience. This is just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's Jamaica's experience. I don't know what, I read was 73 towns signed it up. I didn't see 86%, but that went to some October 22. And I had Sarah print this whole 16-page document.
86 towns, 57.2% of the population.
And, you know, there's some implications in here of what the perceptions of what Vermont is and how we are. One of them is, you know, and it's gonna take me a little courage to say this, but, you know, more specifically, one of the goals of this declaration is to highlight the fact that we as Vermonters are not fully aware of the systematic racism that is present in our majority white, in parentheses, society. Now, we go on and with this statement, does that mean that we believe all of this stuff in here? Did you read all of this? Did you read about our policing policies?
I've read what you just described, yes.
And to Mark's point about, you know, we need to help the police to tell them how to do their jobs, and it's a lot more than just this fluffy statement that looks really good. I mean, I really would encourage the board, maybe I'm the minority here, but I think it's divisive, some of this thing. I'm not gonna read the rest of it. It's very disturbing to me that they are labeling the whole state of Vermont as not knowing what's going on.
I didn't take that away from
Well,
what
that's what
I
it
read.
says right here.
No, it doesn't, but that's, I
And
think.
I can't, as a select board member, speak for everyone in Jamaica that they're going along with all of this, but they can go along with our hate statement. I'm fine with that.
I mean, I've read it. I don't think it labels anybody. I don't think it's accusing anybody of anything. It's
No, I just-
encouraging, look.
Read the historic roots of who put this forward. You know, probably opening a can of worms, but, you know, I don't believe that I can speak for everyone in Jamaica that they believe all that's in here. I can only speak for what I witnessed here and what we did as a board, listening to those people that were in that special meeting. Jessica made up, didn't make it up, took down the statement from what they wanted, the best they could, and we approved. That makes our declaration different than this blanket one. We're already all-inclusive here.
Right, and we're not there, unless I'm misunderstanding, which hopefully not, we're not being asked to change our statement.
Not
So
at all.
They're
that's my
asking
question.
Right.
To use this one.
So if we went to this group, I have not read into this,
Okay,
and said, here's our statement that
Here's
we
our-
came
right.
up with back a couple years ago,
right.
and say, we'd like to be added to your map,
Right.
they would ask Matt. Am I understanding that?
Unless they said no, but
Or
I'm
they-
thinking
or are they saying you
down.
have to
No,
apply
this is
and
a,
do this declaration, the sample one that they
this is a
did?
sample one, like a lot of towns hadn't gone through the
Right,
steps that
hadn't
we did, you know,
I'm not getting that. I'm not in here. But Bennington has its own, you know, but I don't think it has anything to do with this.
Bennington is on, if I read the map correctly, Bennington is one of the maps that was one of the towns that's
But
included.
it says something different.
Right, because you don't have, this is a sample, that's why it's actually called sample declaration.
What I would say we should do, and I'm not making a motion here,
Right.
is we send them our statement of hate, or a statement of not hate, but statement of inclusion, sorry.
Right.
And see what they come back with. And then if they say that's not adequate, then we can open a discussion for
Well, I
further
don't even
discussion.
think
We
it's
don't
worth
have to
this.
do
that would be fine.
I think
They don't like it,
I agree with Andy that we spent a lot of time and had a lot of community feedback a couple years ago to write this, and it was somewhat controversial.
There's
And
a lot
we
of
passed it
emotion.
because we felt it was the right thing to
2.5
do.
years ago. It's not like us just jumping on this bandwagon
I
because we
mean,
got
it
a
was
website.
the right thing to do, and it was definitely in
Right.
reaction to some very
Right.
bad things that happened in town. So
Yes.
I support that, I support doing that, and I don't know if the rest of
And
the
I-
board is there, but.
I read some of the background too, it's the background of what led to this situation. It's not the background of what our town feels or what each individual may feel. It's the background of our country, of our state, and then therefore our town, of what led to the reason that we're even needing to talk about this, and that we should be talking about this.
Well,
And I think our statement is very, very strong, and it's also 2.5 years old, and I would I would hate to be just put on the map as a little checkpoint, yep, we did it. I mean, there's a lot of emotion that went into this. And way before a lot of other people did it, and we're not just jumping on this bandwagon because it's the right thing to do. I mean, that's, I mean,
No, part of the, I'm sorry, Barry.
you're good, I'm dead, yep.
It's political for one thing. There's a political component to it. To be the first state in the nation to have this blanket statement. And it's Massachusetts and New Jersey, what, are we different than them? Vermont, we don't understand, aware of racism, and because we're a majority white society, because what, we didn't have slavery? What the hell does that mean? What does that mean though, majority white society?
May I speak to that? Is it possible? My understanding is that, I'm Susan Hall, I live in Hill Street. My understanding is that because we are people who identify as white and we live in a system and a culture that is based on white supremacy, there's inherent parts of racism that we all are party to. Whether we call ourselves racist or not, we participate in the system. And so when I read something like that, that's how I take it, to say that my lived experience is as a white person. And so if it's possible that I am participating in racism because of the nature of my skin color and the privilege that I grew up with, then I'm not going to say to someone with different lived experience, you can't say that to me, you can't, I can't. I feel like for me, part of growth into anti-racism is being able to hear the perspective of others and to be able to identify myself, not the intent. My intent is never to be racist, that's the whole point, but the impact can be. And so that's how I read something like that, where I say, if the town of Jamaica's statement, which is thoughtfully done, gets included on a map like this, I think it's a point of pride to say, yeah, we're willing to at least acknowledge that systems of racism exist. That's all I'm hearing, is that we're saying as a town, we acknowledge that this exists and that we participate in it because we can't not participate in it because it's the system that we all live in. That's and it's a big, supercharged, emotional, it's politically charged, there's so much tied into it. So personally, I look at it as an opportunity to be able to say, okay, what can I learn from what I'm hearing behind the reasons for this type of action?
So we just, as a select board, are going to assume that we know that all of this is to be true in everyone in this town, or the whole state of Vermont, Island Pond, Brattleboro. We know that this is a good thing to just jump on and sign. I don't mind the state or the sample or whatever, but I'm not real down with the contents of this whole thing. Some of it, I mean, it's common sense to begin with. Why do we have to do anything?
I'm probably not the person to respond to that, but I guess I can give you my best effort, which is there is a weight, there is a gravitas to an official body stating the, as you say, the obvious, stating the practical. Because when it's unsaid, it's unfelt, it's unheard, it's unspoken. If the same reason why we wanted to make that statement when the expressions of hate were being made the way they were is, and the reason why I believe they've actually had an impact both on behavior and on the received feelings of people of color in our community, is because public statements do have an impact, particularly those that are governmental, municipal, coming from leadership. It's tone from the top. Personally, both commercially and governmentally, tone. I personally feel very strongly about the impact of tone from the top. So to be included, I did go through, I'm not gonna say, Andy, that I read every single word of every page on the website, but I spent some time with the website this weekend, and again a little bit today, because I just wanted to make sure I had it right. It didn't strike me as a negative platform. It struck me as a very positive platform, and I didn't see anything in a Google search where people were taking away that this was somehow a negative, or I didn't get anything negative from culturally or within, just search and news items about this platform. It seemed positive, but that was based on my personal research.
Karen? Yeah, I'll take just a few more comments, or we will take, I guess.
So when they talk about being white, and I think that we don't realize exactly what's going on in these families of color that we have in our town. Have you been paying attention to the schools and the things that are happening with racism in our schools right now at Leland and Gray, Brattleboro High School? There's a lot that's been going on, and kids have left the schools to try to go to another school, but it's there. These kids are being called the N-word all the time.
Yeah.
If we pulled in the children of color in our town, I think you would be shocked, absolutely shocked.
To hear what
And this is going on all the time.
So
Make a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we send our statement of inclusion that we wrote 2.5 years ago to the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion and see what they have to say about that.
I second that.
And go from there.
Any further discussion on that?
I think the board should read this whole thing. And I thought that, I was here. I was here for all of this in this town, in Jamaica. I didn't grow up in Massachusetts. I'm from Portland, Maine, I don't understand where there's other implications and accusations in here of how we all, me as a white Irish guy, I'm a racist. Just as you just talked about. What am I going to do? Sit here and be cliche? I'm on camera too. I can't believe this. I took the bait, but what am I supposed to tell you? I have friends of color, and I know how they feel, and have somebody say, you don't know how we feel because you're not going through it. And I told someone at that special meeting, I said, I can't imagine what it's like to have a couple of kids of color, you being, white parents. Okay, we're going to talk about what we're talking about. And somebody says, of course you can, and they told me all these books that I should read. Lambasted me at the meeting. Another person from town. And I'm like, I can read all I want. I'm not, I can tell you that I was persecuted for something that I went through for 20 years. Some behavior I had. Ooh, And you couldn't know what it was like unless that had happened to you. I don't see why that makes us have to submit our inclusion to jump on one that's better for the state of Vermont to be the first in the union to do that. It may seem ignorant, but I'm sort of above that. I don't.
Anything.
I'm not
every platform as much as we can.
I think it goes without saying here. I mean, we've already had it.
We've already said it, so I don't see a problem in
It's just part of the
going
discussion.
this, but like I said, going on to them. This is something that the town has already voted on and expressed that this is something
We're
that
furthering,
we're just
that's what I'm
furthering it,
saying,
as Jessica said,
we're
just
speaking
furthering
from the top to
up
bottom.
the line,
From the top.
from the top.
Anyways,
That's
I'll call the vote, or whatever,
Okay.
motions on the table. I didn't hear who seconded it, but, yes, they did. All in favor of supporting the, sending our current declaration of inclusion to the Vermont Diversity, Education, and Equity Initiative, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Any abstentions?
no.
One opposed. Okay,
Thank you.
who's gonna
You're up
take,
again.
do one of us wanna take that to send, or are we gonna?
Yeah, I'll draft it and circulate it. It's just, it's
Just
basically
to take,
this housing, the housing that you see, but with our statement.
we submit this.
Yep, yep. But I'll submit it to everybody.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is discussion of the Jamaica Historical Foundation's memorandum of understanding for use of the former bank building. And I think Jessica, you were drafting
Yes.
something, so.
Well, actually, Karen was it you who drafted it?
Oh, okay.
And when we discussed it the last time, if I remember correctly, really the only issue was the length of time. The request is that the board commit the town not to transfer or sell the property for at least 50 years. And this is in conjunction with a grant that's being submitted. We also saw the grant request, right? Is that still going on? Or-
We did not get the grant in time,
Oh,
but there
okay,
will be
that's
other
right.
grants.
Other
And
grants,
we just
okay.
have plans and
Right.
you know, there's so much going on with the Historical Foundation. People are just bringing things
Right.
every week, or calling and asking questions and
Right.
needing things, or getting on our website. And we have a very active group.
Right.
So we just would like to have a little stability, knowing that we can stay there. I don't know how many of you have been in the museum, but it's really, really a nice little museum with all sorts of items that people have donated. Just this week, I ended up with 2 or 3 more boxes of things and a couple more artifacts. Anyway, we've had the building for 15 or 16 years now. It was voted on at town meeting, and we would just like to have a memorandum of understanding for it.
So have you written the memorandum of understanding?
Actually Karen did, and it's,
I sent it out to you. I said
Yeah,
it
it
was,
this was a while ago.
Just
that it was
before
circulated.
Christmas.
It was before Christmas.
Oh, did you resend it?
I
Yes,
did
you did
resend it,
resend it.
so we can have it on the
So
agenda.
and as I
remember we
read
had
it, the
on
one,
the agenda and you cut it off the agenda at one meeting, you said.
yeah, I think so as well. So there is a budget that's been proposed for work, right? And there's gonna be, you're seeking grants and potentially, donations, right? To help support that budget. So I think in the context of that, having a commitment from the town not to sell the asset is what supports grants, supports donations, and as well as just volunteer time, a lot of volunteer time, because you have a house. So the only, the issue that 50 just seemed
And that's fine.
like a bit of a swallow. And so I thought if we could discuss with you and among the board a number that isn't as difficult to take in, but gives you the comfort that you need to be applying for grants, spending donated money, spending your own time. Is that,
I don't have a copy of it.
I can't find
I'm
fully supportive of it.
Right.
So what's
But in
basically
general, I
saying-
don't feel comfortable not seeing the details or having it, that's
I'll have
just,
to read it.
yeah, right. I'm fully supportive of the idea and see the reasoning for it.
Basically,
Going 50 years, I also think it's
Right,
maybe
so
excessive,
20,
but
25
20, whatever,
years,
but the
something like
concept
that.
is awesome.
Right.
I mean, it's, or
I don't
30,
recall seeing
30's
it
good.
I don't have it. I don't have it.
I know it's not.
Okay, so
Sorry.
I have it, I just reread it. It's
Can you forward it to us? real quick?
yes, you know what, it's on my phone, it's a little harder for me to,
Okay.
But
I
I
had
think
it on my.
You want to read it to us?
we'd be
Is it-
rushed.
I know, that's why I'm trying to find it. I'm like,
I personally
it's
feel
buried
we'd
in
be
an
rushed to
earlier
consider it
chain. It's buried
I'd
in.
much rather digest it and then. be
Right,
I
rushed to
agree.
consider it.
right.
I'm with you.
It's
I'd like
also,
to- so
now
send
to
it
be
tomorrow.
honest, it's like one page. Oh, you know what? I think I just found it. And I'm getting
I mean, there's no urgency here if you're not
Of this
specifically.
next
I think
meeting.
last time you were trying to get that
It was
grant.
embedded
So there was
in
some
an
urgency to
email.
get the
Right.
grant. Without, I.
Here it is, okay, so I'm gonna forward it to everybody right now, it's the one that's embedded in the email. It goes through the history that Karen just highlighted, explains why the MOU is being requested, and it's basically asking us to commit the town not to sell the property for a period of time, so.
And to let us be in there.
Right, and be occupied and
Right,
operated.
do something.
If we put a short amount of time, is that something that can be extended later?
Can always go
But
right
by
back.
another motion of the town,
So-
yeah, yeah.
Can another board change it?
Yes,
Yeah, you
Oh,
can.
yeah.
well,
I mean, you
No.
have a
No,
better
no.
understanding, it's.
right, it would have to be, so an MOU is signed by both the board and by the association, by the society.
Right.
So, yes, we could by mutual agreement
There's usually
change
exit
it,
clause.
but right, or, right,
Or
exactly.
when it expires.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would agree with Greg that we table it and we vote on it next week. That's what I.
Was there a motion?
It was
No,
not
no,
a
that's
motion.
not been a motion.
No, but if we could have a discussion about what the time period might be, because then I think what I'll do is I'll take yours, put it in a Word document, put in the time period and circulate that and any other, comments that people give
25
me.
years? I think 25.
25?
Is it good? Does that work for you, Karen?
That's fine, that's fine.
I'm just throwing the number out.
I'm-
It'd be 30 years too, it's a mortgage, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm forwarding you the email, everyone. You can either look at this or you can wait till I'm gonna put it in a Word document, change it from 50 to 25.
And
And-
you're wording
What
in
is
there
it?
about.
That puts us almost at 2050. What's it, 23 what?
Think about
You can
that.
do 27 years and then when you turn 20.
Do 27 years?
27 years, 2050. I
We
think.
could do 27 years.
Let's do that. I mean, I think
Just
that
to give it
that's
a
a
round
good round
number.
number, so you at least go
Right.
through 2050.
Right.
And then
Just own
you could do another 50 year then or something, and then get to do 2100,
Yeah.
and none of us are gonna be here anyway, so.
Well,
Right, exactly.
we'll think about that.
We'll worry about that in 2050.
Exactly. We'll worry about that in 25 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say we, will move this. approve
Put
it,
it
so
on
to speak,
for final approval at the
To
next
the next,
meeting.
we'll review before the next meeting and.
Sure, that's fine, that's fine.
And then like a legal document will have to be drawn up or something?
That's so I'm sending you what Karen proposed. I'm gonna take it, put it in a Word document, change it to 27 years.
27.
27 years,
Or you
and
could just mark the date.
I might tweak it a little
You could just
bit.
say through 2050.
All right,
December
right,
20
exactly.
December
Through the
31st,
term, right, the
2050.
term of which expires on, December 31st, 2050. And what I'll ask is just everybody react to it, but just to me, so that it doesn't constitute a meeting. And then I'll try to incorporate comments to the extent there are any, and I'll share them with you too.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is item number 7. It just so happens every time this time of year, we sign off on the V-Trans highway mileage certificate, and Terry said she's putting it in there.
It's in.
It's changed slightly, obviously, because we've made some adjustments to some of our road reclassifications.
Here it is.
Looked like it was already signed.
So that was,
By all of us?
what's that?
A little less.
Page on the back was a photo.
We would have less.
Mileage.
We put all the
Less
maps in
mileage.
case you didn't trust our map,
No, there was somewhere in there, maybe I saw it.
to where we got our.
This is last year.
That was last year, so.
July,
It's
or last
not-
6 months,
it's not
July
gonna-
2022.
Got it.
It's not gonna change too much.
Has
I mean,
anything
because some
changed,
of,
has anything changed at all?
Yes,
well, no, there is
because
because of our road reclassification.
Okay.
Was it like
The
6,
road
10 miles or
reclassification and
something?
addition
Well,
of.
one of the,
I
one
was
big
looking for the
portion
new,
was the
I
trail,
don't see
so
the
that
new
doesn't count.
signature page.
So it would be a couple roads changed
How am I missing this?
class, and one was discontinued.
And
We
also
just
added,
signed,
did we add,
and just here?
This is the
Andrews
new
Road
one,
too,
we
or
all
is that?
the map.
Okay,
That's
so we
fine.
just will sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this will get
Okay.
kind of, I don't know, chewed up or whatever by V-Trans and then spit back out for
Right.
our
We should just like
appropriations.
fly here, which is
Next
not.
year.
We get plans, right?
We do get money, but we'll
Got
get a little bit less.
I'll make a motion that we sign the certificate of highway mileage for the year ending February 10th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, we will sign off on that. Perfect. The next item is to approve the timesheets for the town staff, highway department, transfer station, et cetera, et cetera. Harry, I put those up. Make a motion to approve the timesheets.
Second.
All in favor? Anybody see it? All in favor of approving type sheets? Say aye.
Aye.
The pay orders. Oh, Jerry also put up the pay orders for the past couple of weeks. All in favor of reviewing or approving the past 2 weeks' pay orders, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any questions? No, too late for questions. Sorry. Okay. Okay, next, public concerns, a few different publics. Karen, you're done. You guys, thank you for coming. I think you have other stuff that you want?
I think at this point I'll plan ahead for next time.
Okay, reach out to me or go through Sarah, you want to get on the agenda?
Yeah, get more organized with it, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Not Jack.
Is that thing tomorrow open to the public, or is it
Wednesday.
Wednesday, I mean?
No,
Not really.
it's a member
Right.
training. I can ask if
Oh, no.
you're interested.
I was just curious, if that's why you mentioned.
No, it was more just with
No,
what Paul was saying, and it kind
Yeah.
of relates to the pod,
Right.
Situation. If we were
Interesting.
in a mass casualty or some sort of incident, that would come into effect, but also the incident command, which you would be a part of, so
Right.
it's not specific to select board participation,
No.
Wednesday night, but yeah. But I would imagine if any of you wanted to be there for informational purposes, it would be open to that.
You all need to sign too.
Oh, yeah, sign it.
You post it, sign it.
Hang on.
Wait,
Okay.
just one thing.
Okay.
Oh.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, I'm working down the line, but if you got something related to this.
Not related to that, something
I
separate.
do relate to that.
Okay,
Did we get our generator fixed?
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay. All right, Bob.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Greg, for your help with the memorandum
Still, it
of
feels
understanding
Frustrating
around,
taking so long, but.
around kind of an agreement with the town on how we can maintain the Craven Legal Trail and the Maori Legal Trail in southeast Jamaica there, so people can still hike it, and so it's, and just want to just reiterate my concern that we create something that's adaptable and low cost to allow for future improvements to
Right.
both Maori and Craven.
Right, and I appreciate you being concerned about all that too, because some of our concern, and just a little bit of back history, Bob has purchased a piece of property up on Craven Road that includes bordering on some town roads and includes some intersection from town trails, and he's looking to do some upgrades to those to gain access to a building site.
Yes.
And don't take this personally, but you've been doing everything perfect, and I'm glad to be working with you. My concern, and I appreciate your patience, my concern is from the town perspective, is that there may be other people out there, not your particular property, but in general around town that may take advantage of these situations and restrict public access and things like that. So some of this is just making sure there's clarity around it. You're doing everything right, so don't interpret the length of time as there's something wrong. So anyways, and I've asked our attorney to kind of brush it up, don't want it to be complicated, but just want to use it almost to set the tone for other people out there that may be looking to, or maybe not even aware of the town trails and roads and what they mean and what they can do to them. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to add any more? I kind of intersected and that's it, but.
I think it's, I look forward to working on that memo with you.
Yeah, all right, great, thank you.
All right.
Tom.
I moved. Oh, did you have other things?
I do, just one thing I wanted to say, so I heard, a little birdie told me that Karen Amden did the lighting of the White House over can you just tell us a little bit about what you did?
Oh, well, I was selected, there were 150 people from all around the country, 57 states and territories, to go decorate the White House for Christmas. So I spent 6 days, 7 in the morning till 5 at night, and one night, Saturday night, they needed extra help until 7, and so I stayed.
What a shock,
There
you
were a few of
volunteered.
us.
Yeah, Karen volunteered.
And so I called my
Shocking.
son and I said, I have 2 sons in DC, so I stayed with them. And I said, so Kevin, I'll be late for dinner. The White House needs me. But it was a blast.
Amazing,
Absolute blast.
amazing. Well, you post some pictures, whatever you can, onto the Jamaica page, can you?
Not too right.
Or whatever you're allowed?
And I made it onto HGTV too. They do the show Decorating the White House, so I
Okay.
was talking in there. So
Any
it was
links,
cool.
I mean, people really want to hear it, so everybody I've spoken to,
It
it's
was
just like,
great, and once you're
over
in,
and
you're
over.
in, so they say I can come back again,
Oh,
so,
no kidding.
which I intend to do.
Very
so
exciting.
congratulations.
Well, thank
And
you.
what a really
Oh.
wonderful, wonderful thing,
It
and
was just
very
wonderful.
exciting.
It
Okay.
was,
There are posts on the president and the first lady's Instagram as well, related to the decorations.
No
and
kidding.
They do the pan.
Okay.
So then you can ask her, like, which one are you with?
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
yes.
I was able to decorate most of the rooms that were decorated by staying late that one day,
Okay.
and, but my main focus was the Vermeil room, so when
Oh,
you,
the Vermeil room.
yeah,
Okay.
so when you look online and see the Vermeil room, that's me, so, it was great,
All right.
but
All
thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats, congrats.
I find,
Done, we're gonna move into.
I move to find a
executive
premature general public knowledge of a health officer issue would clearly place the public or at a substantial disadvantage because the select board will be discussing said issue in public.
session. All in favor of
Second?
going into.
Second.
Sorry. All in favor of going into executive session to discuss a health matter, say aye.
Then I move we enter the executive session to discuss such matter under provisions of Title I, Section 313A1A of the Vermont statute.
All right.
Second.
Thank you all.
So, don't forget to sign, guys.
Second.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
I know who they are.
Aye.
In favor.
Yes.
Just sign it.
Okay, it is 8:35 and we'll move out of executive session.
It's a double.
There was no discussion, there was discussion, no decision made. And we'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor, we adjourn at